Hello, welcome back to the Press Box, welcome back to the Woodwork channel. This week it's just me, Luca and Connor, and we're going to have a chat. As soon as these two commentate on Dulwich, we're going to do a chat about commentary, our best commentators on TV and radio. But first we'll get into a discussion about commentary, as soon as you both commentate for Dulwich. Luca, Connor, we'll start with you because I suppose you started first.
Yeah.
Did you always want to get into doing football commentary, or was it just something that was sprung up on you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it started with shouting at FIFA as a kid, to be honest. That was kind of where it came from. And then, yeah, it went from there. It was just something I thought would be fun, to be honest. With Dulwich, like, when I started there, because it was, like, through uni, they just wanted us to do everything, basically. Mm-hmm. And then after the end of my first year there, I did about half a season there last season. Went pretty well, and then commentary was what I enjoyed the most. They were quite happy with me doing it as well, so I just went with that. I think, to be honest, a lot of the reason they wanted me to do it is because I did men's and women's football, so not many people did both. So I was kind of like reliable to do one game a weekend. It's a bit different on radio, TV. I've done like little bits of like highlights commentary for TV, which is different. That's quite fun because you don't have to literally. I think the radio commentary is more high pressure. Yeah, it can be a lot of fun when you do it, like with non-league especially, because you can say whatever you like on non-league radio. You can literally say whatever you want. But with like with the TV stuff, or especially if it's like highlights commentary, you've got such a small amount of time to pack everything in. So it's a little bit more, people can kind of see if you've done it wrong, basically. With radio, there's not that pressure. If you make a mistake, no one knows. But no, I think radio commentary is more, you get more freedom with it. I think you can kind of, you can do what you like. You can make it a bit more lighthearted if you want. Or with TV, it's sort of more descriptive, a bit more professional, I think, with TV. But obviously that's where the money is. So if you're going to go into it full time, then it's probably going to be TV commentary, realistically.
Luca, you were a bit late to the bandwagon. I think your first commentary was with Connor.
Yeah, it was with Connor. I literally got thrown in at the deep end straight away. Got let know literally 3 hours before kick-off by Kean, our media manager at Dulwich. He goes, "Oh yeah, do you fancy doing commentary tonight? I've got to turn up to Champion Hill, got stinking cold. Just try not to cough for the first time."
I remember that, yeah. Do you know what? He actually handled it pretty well, given that he had basically like flu. It was pretty impressive.
But yeah, Dulwich definitely is good for someone that's like just started commentating, obviously, and you get to do both men and women's games.
Mm-hmm. Was it the first experience you had of commentary then?
Yeah, apart from commentating on my FM saves in lockdown, but apart from that, no.
Well, we're going to come on to talking about our favourite commentators. So what do you guys think is the essence of being a commentator? What do you look for?
You can't be biased at all. I think for Dulwich, it's a bit different because...
Yeah, it depends on
club
your
radio,
audience.
isn't it, as well?
Yeah, for in-house,
Dulwich supporters,
you kind of have to be a little bit biased because all of the listeners that you're getting are from that club. But if it's a big broadcasting company, you can't be seen to be liking another team. But you still see it a lot on the likes of Sky Sports. Not going to name names right now.
There might be a future employers here. Be careful. Connor?
I think it's not just telling you the obvious. You don't need a commentator, if it's especially TV commentary. I mean, that's mainly what we're looking at, isn't it? On TV commentary, you don't need someone to tell you every single time someone's passing the ball. You can see that. Obviously, like radio, you do. We kind of, you do have to make sure you're covering everything because like where on the pitch, what kind of pass, what kind of shot, everything like that. But I think TV commentary is just, can they actually add something? Is there something that you wouldn't get watching the game if it was like silent, for example?
It's also when to not say anything as well. That's probably the hardest thing. I mean, I've never commentated on TV before, but I think that's probably the hardest thing to know when to pause.
And some of them certainly don't.
I mean, you think about like an example when it's done really well. You think about the Aguero goal, right? Yeah. It was literally just Balotelli, Aguero. That's it. They didn't say, and it's like literally like 20 seconds, and there's no, because you don't need to say anything, do you?
Yeah,
what can you add? And especially when you can see it, you can see all the celebrations and everything. What can you possibly say to So don't. There's no need.
And I suppose commentary's opened up maybe a career path for you too. Is that something you're both looking into do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even with other sports as well, definitely. It's definitely made me a lot more confident. Yeah. Going to games, just the fact that you can just do it on a whim as well. Like, you see a lot of people make notes and everything, but if you do, especially on radio, if you literally just turn up to the game and say what you see, chances are you're gonna not do too badly.
Especially if it's it's like a team or a league that you know reasonably well. Like if you're doing it on, obviously, like the Premier League is the very top of it, but it's probably easier to do it on the Premier League than it is like the lower reaches of the National League. Yeah, exactly. You know who you're looking at. You don't need as much research and stuff into it.
You turn up to non-league games and 50-50 you'll get a team sheet.
Yeah, that's the tricky one. Yeah,
and then if you do, you'll get half the names that you can't even pronounce.
Yeah.
Half the teams have kit numbers that are wrong, and you just have to kind of
roll with it,
make do with it.
Yeah, when a number 19's coming on and your subs stop at 15, that's when you've got a bit of a problem. Yeah.
But then you also see a player that's you recognise somewhere from maybe an old FM save or something that's like 35, 40
Honestly, the
years
amount
old.
of times that's happened,
Yeah.
like, and especially like we work in the 7th, like Dulwich in the 7th tier, right?
Yeah.
And the women's team are in the 4th tier. The amount of times you see a player you actually recognise just off an
Yeah.
article FM, or like like a random loan deal they had with a Premier League club 7 years ago or something like that. It's in there somewhere. It just needs to be knocked out of you.
Right, let's get into it then. So we'll start with TV, shall we? Our best TV commentators. My favourite is Daniel Mann on Sky. I think
Absolute corker.
You know it.
Absolute
I think
corker.
he's the voice. I grew up watching AFL obviously because like Forest were in the doldrums for that long, and he just emphasises it. Like he did the knockout takes, our media saves, knockout takes, and I just think his voice. I think he wasn't there for a couple of years for some reason. I don't know why.
I think he did some World Cup commentary because there was one game I think where it's the Tony Cruz free hit, and that's him commentating. And I was like, oh,
it's brilliant.
I wonder where he's gone.
Yeah.
And then he came back to Sky, I think.
I think he could. This is very nerdy, by the way, guys. I don't know if anyone's actually watched this far, but I just think he's I know he could probably work at Premier League level. I think he's the best, and I think he just suits the Championship with his energy, with his unpredictability. I know he's one of your favourites, Luca.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, one of the games that's just in my mind, just literally watching at home, is the Derby Leeds playoff semi-final.
The Spygate.
Yeah. And every time I watch the highlights of that, I don't really care about Derby. I don't care about Leeds. Every time I watch that game with the highlights, I get goosebumps. Just watching it.
And for a commentator to do that, it's very powerful, isn't it?
It's difficult to do that.
Apparently, Daniel Mann's not on your list, Connor. So.
No, because as much as I get what it is with the EFL, and you have to have you do have to have a special kind of dedication to go to Carlisle on a cold Tuesday night and do EFL commentary. But I think it's like working in the biggest, most well-known moments and being able to as I said, add something to something that everyone already knows a lot about. Like, nothing against Daniel Mann at all, but when we said, when we got the brief, it's like sort of top 5 commentators, I'm thinking like, what do you add over the top? With someone like Daniel Mann on EFL commentary, a lot of the time with that, you're just by saying, sort of the slightly more obvious things, it's still things that people aren't necessarily aware of. Yeah. It's not like there's obviously, especially EFL, like lower divisions as well. There's not as much. He's
also gone and done it at the World Cup.
He has gone and done it at the World Cup. Yeah, that's a really good point. But I think
he does Champions League now, I think, doesn't he as well?
Yeah, but to be fair, 5 is a small number, isn't it? It's difficult to put on there. Yeah,
why is Tom Skipping's not on there?
Well, yeah, Tom Skippers is a big omission. I have to say, yeah, that slipped my mind to be honest. Yeah,
he won't be happy watching this.
No, he won't. No, I'm sure
he'll definitely be watching.
He'll be having a go.
Yeah. While we're on, so Daniel Mann is in mine. Is he in yours? Top 5.
I didn't make a top 5.
Okay, he's off the top of your head.
But while we're on the first one that came to mind when you mentioned this.
While we're on EFL, what do you think about Gary Weaver?
Well, he's kind of the right. Is he the one that's kind of
the main?
The co
he does the main. Yeah.
No, Gary Weaver's the other one. There's 2 Championship ones, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
Gary Weaver does.
As in, if they've got like a late game and they've got one of the 12,
Gary
Weaver
the late one. I'm not a huge fan of Gary Weaver because I think he's more. He tries to be the Peter Drury of the Championship. I don't think the Championship's suited to that as much. I like him. I think he's all right.
I think the poetic commentators sometimes they are like what we were saying before about when to not say something.
Yeah,
like, I think they're just
kind
kind
of
of
all the time.
Yeah, it does. You don't need to
be. Or they've risen from their rubble or something like that every time. It's not always relevant, is it?
No.
And when you say something like that, it makes it more.
That should be saved for the big. So like with the classic Peter Drury one, like the Barcelona one.
Yeah,
like Roma had lost. What was it like 4-1, 3-0 to Barcelona? They turned it over. That is incredible. That's when you should have that. Not because Watford have equalised against Sunderland. That's not quite the same. Like,
let's talk about Drury then, because that line is exceptional. I don't know if you've seen him talk about it. He said, "I said it because I didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
I didn't know who scored. Yeah, that's because Roma risen from their rubble.
Yeah.
The Greek god Manolas,
isn't
it? But he didn't know who it was, so he had to say something. And he said one of the most iconic lines in football commentary. He's obviously Sky's premier commentator now. Do you think he's deserved to be?
It's a very weird one because the season before he joined, everyone was like, "Oh, we need Peter Drury. Martin Tyler's had enough. He needs to go." And then Peter Drury's come in, and he comes in with these really weird and wacky lines every time there's a big goal in the big game, and ever so quickly people start to get sick of it.
They want it all the time.
Yeah.
I never forget though. Do you remember when Ronaldo came back to United and he did Manchester, Madeira, Manchester again? Have you heard that? Weaved in red.
No.
Go and listen to that after. That's
good.
exceptional.
Okay.
That's obviously something he's rehearsed.
Again, a big moment, right?
Yeah.
So Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the most iconic players Manchester United have ever had. For him to go back to Manchester, that is a huge moment, right? And that's fair enough, but it shouldn't be every single week because Sky will deploy him every week, right? There'll be a game every week. They'll say it'll probably be United Arsenal this week. Yeah, 4:30 Sunday,
every
exactly.
game.
That game we're playing against United
against like Man U or something.
Exactly, right? And like when we play United this week, that's not a big game. There's like 40 points between us. Yeah, no, obviously it's a big rivalry, but you know what I mean? It's not like whoever wins it, we're not going to win the league, and United are not going to get relegated. So there's nothing really sitting on it.
Got to be a
It's not.
for 0-0.
Yeah.
I don't think United keep a clean sheet, to be honest.
I mean, he did.
We don't have to
put
do
7
much.
past.
Yeah, but regardless, I think United will hand one to us at the very least.
Yeah.
Whether we.
Well, we'll see. Well, this will be out by then. So
Yeah,
we'll
wouldn't it? It'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
Is Drury in your top half then? Because he's not in mine.
No, he's not. I think, like I said, in the big moments, yes, you want something like that, but not every game.
Could he do it on a cold night in Carlisle?
Well, that's the thing. Could he?
He must have done at some point.
He must have done at some point, right? And because he was with ITV for a long time. So when ITV get those, they get like the early stages of the FA Cup, do they? Like round 1, round 2. So he probably has done. But
have you listened to? You probably don't know the Commentators' View on 5 Live. It's a podcast. Drury was on it last week, and he was talking about how like his roots in radio commentary. And I'm thinking, I really can't picture him doing radio commentary at all because he wouldn't paint the picture. But I suppose he's obviously adapted over time.
That's the thing, and it's quite different. Yeah, I can kind of see it because it almost feels like maybe he's overcompensating the fact that he's on TV now. I know he's trying to add too much. I can kind of see the radio commentary to him. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So go on then, read off some names, Connor. Who else
well, you mentioned Martin Tyler. I put Martin Tyler on there because for me, growing up, he was the voice of football that I heard.
Just iconic,
right? Yeah, because for me,
FIFA
like
to start with.
FIFA. No, but you know what? I think it probably is more that than Sky.
Yeah,
because like obviously all the games that I used to watch, the first games I can remember watching were on Sky, and it was Martin Tyler if it was a big game, and then I'd go and play FIFA. And Alan Smith as well because they were like the FIFA duo for a long time, weren't they? And even when they added in they got like much more analytical when they added in like Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher.
It was a shift, really, wasn't it?
It was a shift, and but I thought he could do both, and I thought that was important.
I think it was the time to go, wasn't it, when he did?
Yeah, no, I think it was. Yeah, but you can still, like same for a manager or a player, they can still, they can overstay their welcome and still be.
Because I think he still does. Like now, he does like
all the American.
Does World Feed?
World Feed.
So
if you see like highlights or something that isn't. I think he did FA Cup because BBC showed it, so the ITV highlights had him on it, and I was a bit like, "Ooh, that's a blast from the past." He must love it though, because he must be nearly 80, and he's still
he does because he works for a non-league club somewhere.
He's
like
working.
So he's obviously still got roots in football, so he's still up to date with everything. And he's just one of those voices, isn't it? As soon as you hear 2 seconds, 1 word, you know the voice. Yeah, it's almost like a. Kind of takes you back a little bit to when you first, for me at least, when I was first watching football. It's lovely.
There's also just so many iconic ones.
Yeah.
The Makeda one comes to mind.
Yeah.
Because his voice just completely goes and he does it.
Because he's as stunned as everyone else, isn't he? But that's what I think he felt that he was genuinely enjoying it as well. It wasn't a job. It was just I get to watch these games for free.
Slightly
I was just going to say that. Do you buy into the thing he didn't like
It could have done, couldn't it? But then again, when you think about the years that he was sort of like, I don't know if you'd say prime for a commentator, but United won everything. Yeah. So it's kind of hard not to be, I think, at that stage.
Anyone else then, Connor?
Well, I did put Gary Neville on there as well, not because I think he's a wonderful commentator, but more because I think he changed the role of the co-commentator.
Yeah.
So I think the role that you expect of a co-commentator now, where you're very much like, it's almost like you're a studio analyst live, like the commentator will deal with everything that's happening and you're just running back through things. And I think he was kind of the first one that made a modern co-commentator. And I think, to be honest, there are probably better examples now. Look likes of like Lucy Ward, for example. She does a lot of the Champions League games, BT. I think she's fantastic. But I think the fact that Gary Neville kind of invented the role means that he's kind of why he should be on the list. Yeah.
Do you think he's the best at that now at the minute then?
If it's not one of a few certain teams, with United he can't seem to. He just which I get, because if I was a United fan I'd be furious.
It's entertaining though.
It is entertaining. Exactly. It's not necessarily the most like the best commentator,
Yeah.
but it's always entertaining.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of puts it on just a little bit more.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
I mean, obviously
yeah.
he's very passionate about United, but he's going to win.
But it's even like the
more
difference. If you watch something like The Overlap, right, you can tell there's a completely different tone on The Overlap to when he's actually on Sky. So, you know, it's very, very.
I mean, The Overlap. They might as well just call it Man United, like fan page or something.
Do you know what? Like, I'm not a massive fan of Jamie Carragher, but it's a really good job that he's there because he kind of counters it a little bit.
Well, sometimes it's not, and they get like Schmeichel in, and they've got like Scholes, Neville, Keane, and there's Wrighty in the corner. Right. What do we think about Darren Fletcher?
I think he's great.
Yeah. I mean, he's a Forest fan, so he's got a.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring that up.
I think him and McCoist work really, really well together. Yeah.
I put them both.
I do like McCoist a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think more for Ali McCoist than Darren Fletcher, to be honest. But I think Darren Fletcher like what we said with Peter Drury in the big moments, Darren Fletcher's much better at balancing that. Like he does add a lot of layers to the bigger moments. But if it's if it's 4-0 instead of 3-0, we'll just treat it as what it is. It's more calm. So when he is louder and more sort of illustrates it more, you can tell that it's a big moment.
I kind of see it as like Ali McCoist is like the little naughty kid.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Always
trying to
keeping him in
order. Because McCoist will literally just chat whatever he wants to say. Really,
you could just see Darren going,
please be quiet now, Ali.
Or a goaler going, and as Fletcher's about to talk, and McCoist going, ah. But yeah, McCoist. It feels weird, doesn't it? If you watch like ITV and McCoist is there with like.
Sam Matterface or Seb Hutchinson,
Do you want to talk about Matterface?
Sure.
Thoughts?
The thing is, I don't know if you knew already, George, but I go to a lot of England games. So
it's come up.
So
since when?
Couple of years.
Oh, I thought it was a new thing.
Obviously, so I'm normally in the stadium when Matterface is commentating.
Yeah.
So I hear all these terrible things about Matterface, but I can't really comment on it when I'm not actually listening to him most of the time. But I've not heard good things.
I mean, you have to cut him a little bit of slack because watching England is not exciting.
No,
let's be honest. It's not.
I've got to say,
it's not a great gig.
And he's in my top 5. Going from Clive Tilsley to Matterface, I think was a huge mistake for me.
Clive Tilsley
is immense, and he still does CBS, doesn't he, for America? He's just for me, like Tyler's the voice of the Premier League, and in FIFA, Tills is the voice of England.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's not just it's not just England, but for me, he was always the voice of the FA Cup as well.
Yeah,
the FA Cup is my favourite competition across any sport, not just in football.
Yeah.
And he is the voice of that because I think it was so like with any other commentator, you could kind of like you would feel that they were either gearing up the upset or they were gearing up how much of a mistake it would be if the bigger team lost.
Yeah.
Whereas with Clive Tilsley, it was just a game of football. Like it didn't matter if he got a game that was 2 League One sides, that's what he got. He would treat it the same as if he was doing a Manchester derby. You know, like it didn't matter. He was just there to watch the game, and I think that was like the most like kind of pure form of commentary.
What I would say about Matterface finally, I think radio is actually quite good. Sometimes if the game's on TalkSport and after flick TalkSport on, I don't mind him on radio. But I just think because he's so good there, maybe he doesn't know when to not talk on TV, and that's maybe obviously he's the professional commentator, and we're sat here analysing, so everybody knows better.
What other commentators do you reckon talk too much?
Jonathan Pearce.
Yeah. I always have a soft spot for him because I watched Robot Wars. But aside from that,
Jonathan Pearce, I think
he's very Marmite.
Bit of a drone as well. To be honest.
But that's I do like him, but I think you're right. It's kind of like a Marmite commentator. Because I think the Robot Wars stuff.
And I think
he
puts himself in it too much as well. He talks about I think this or I just.
Did you see the Rishi Sunak one the other week?
Yeah, the Southampton one. That was
funny.
That was amazing.
That was good. And Tom actually said that Jonathan Pearce was one of his mentors, didn't he? I don't know if you watched the Tom Skippins episode. I hope you did.
Of course I did, mate.
Of course we did.
Every second.
Excellent.
How do you think it hit 200
So I think all of mine, apart from Steve Bauer, have been mentioned. I really like Steve Bauer's match of the day, and I remember I was at the game because I go to Forest games.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But BBC, he did BBC when Forest played Leicester in the FA Cup. And I watched the highlights, and it's just so incredible. And like you say, he treated Forest like we were equal to Leicester. Yeah. Obviously, Leicester were low off of the Premier League, and we were doing something special in the Champs. So I suppose it wasn't that much of an upset. He really, we were, mate.
It was 22nd to
24th after 1 point after 7 games, and we got promoted, mate. That's something special. Steve Cooper. So that's the last one on my list. Is there anyone we've not said on yours, Connor? I know you've been to do a list.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, if we're thinking all time. Motti's got to be on there.
Yeah,
John
Motti, what a legend! What a legend!
But it's a tough question, I think, because with it's changed, hasn't it? Like for me, I think the reason I ended up picking up so many modern ones is just because that's what we're used to now. You think about the old days of commentary is very, very different because there weren't the number of statistics, there weren't the number of
listeners,
graphic. Yeah, well, listeners, there's that, but also imagine the graphics they have coming up now. Everything that comes up on a screen, for example,
it kind of takes words away.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like they have to talk about it. You know, like when you get these stats teed up and it'll be like goal scorers or stats or possession or whatever it is.
Then they don't even have to say anything. If it comes
up,
they don't.
Yeah, you can they'll just say like, look at that or something, or like that.
Or
shows
even now,
it,
they're in the stadium and they're watching the game. You might want to watch the game, but the camera flicks to the manager. So then you've got to say something about the manager, haven't you? Because the TV audience is seeing the manager. Because it's what you see. And this, going back to like the radio TV thing, it's something we never have to contend with. We can pick what we talk about with radio, and I like that because if the manager at Dulwich before the current one, Hakan, really characterful. He's one of the loudest people in football, right? Great manager to have for commentary.
You could probably hear him swearing.
Yeah, no, because you literally, we had to apologise for. I think it was last season before you were there. We literally had to apologise it for a couple of times. You could hear it from the touchline. Brilliant manager.
Quite a distance as well.
He would he's one of those managers who would go on the pitch if he could. You know, he's a brilliant manager to commentate on. But then sometimes, if he's going off on and having a go at a ref or something while you're in on goal at the other end, you've got to talk about. Obviously, your mind's made up. But if it's sort of while you're setting up for a free kick or something, you have the choice with radio.
Also for radio, you've got that margin for error. You can kind of delay what you're going to say for a couple seconds because the audience don't know that's happening.
Seen it, whereas TV, you've got to be spot on. Do you think you'd enjoy doing TV commentary?
I think, I think it would be easier in some ways.
It is and it isn't, because with the radio stuff, obviously, as you said, there's a margin for error, but you have to fill it all the time. Sometimes it's hard to fill, and especially like if you're doing TV commentary on your own, it's much easier. Just like Match of the Day, right? Match of the Day, apart from FA Cup every now and again, it's one commentator, right? So that you can just leave a bit of a gap if you need to. You can let the football talk for itself. But with radio, you can't do that. So I think maybe I'd agree if you're working together. Yeah, it's probably easier to do radio because, like I said, there's a margin for error in it. You can just have a chat, basically. But I think if you're doing it on your own, much easier to do TV because filling like 100+ minutes on your own on radio is really hard.
Now I want to finish talking about radio commentators. I know Ellie's going to get mad in a few minutes, but we're gonna plough on, Ellie. Sorry.
I don't see any disgruntledness.
Well, because she's so small.
Well, we wouldn't see over the script.
So finally, I want to talk about radio commentators. I know you want to talk about non-football commentators, but I think some of the best commentators currently are radio, and I'll even choose to listen to 5 Live over Watch TV. I know that's quite sad, but I think I'm going to shout out 3. John Murray, Conor McNamara and Ali Bruce Ball I think are exceptional. I think the way they bring you into the game like you're there, I get a better experience sometimes listening to them than watching football. Finally, Colin Fray, who is the Forest commentator for Radio Nottingham, obviously.
Shocking.
But honestly, that's how I got into football. I didn't used to go to the games. I used to tune my radio into 103.8 FM, stick my little aerial out the window at 3 o'clock every Saturday afternoon.
How old
and
are you?
listen to him. All right, calm down. Yeah, we're not the richest up north, I know you Londoners might have it all paid for you, but yeah, I had to do that, and I fell in love with football listening to Colin Fray do Forest commentary. So I want to end it talking about them, and we'll give it to you the last word, Connor, to talk about some non-football ones.
Yeah, I mean, there's the commentary obviously is different depending on sports. So like David Croft, like the Crofty, the Formula One commentator, he is fantastic because having something fresh to say for 2 hours of Formula One race is hard.
That must be one of the hardest sports to commentate.
But never bored. I know obviously some people do get bored watching a football, but I honestly would never be bored for 2 hours watching a Formula One race, just listening to it. And I think that takes a special kind of skill to keep you engaged with that. And I also think something like darts commentators as well. Because people like Wayne Mardle, they've done it for such a long time. They cannot see anything they've not seen before. It's impossible because they've seen it, whether they've played it themselves or seen it before. But it's
unless it's Littler doing what he's doing.
Well, arguably that. But then again, you can still say like Phil Taylor
anymore, is it?
Yeah, like again, for the first year or so it was. But he's won what 5 TV titles now. There's not much more to do, is there? Yeah, he's won the World Championship, won the Premier League, so he has kind of he's not going to do anything more special than So it's still you don't feel bored watching darts, do you?
No.
You know, like there's a
apart from when it's
what I mean. Yeah, no. Well, apart from when
this guy.
But you know what I mean. It's. I think it's difficult. Laura Turner as well is really good as well. I think because she's played more recently.
Yeah.
I think there's more of an understanding of like the media of darts as well because there wasn't any really when it was like Wayne Mardle's kind of year. So I think it's not just football commentators, but I do think with football it is particularly difficult to stand out. So for the ones that we've highlighted, they're pretty special.
Right, just briefly then, most difficult sports to commentate on. What do you think?
Radio or TV?
We'll do both. I said before, radio, I think golf and cricket have to be, just because they're so slow paced, they happen for so long, and you could have such big breaks in time.
Have you listened to the
TMS
Test Match Special?
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's his name? Aggers.
Yeah.
Jonathan Agger. I think they're brilliant.
But he's literally just a walking stat book.
Yeah.
Like,
well, no, who's the other one? Zaltzman, is it? Andy Zaltzman, the stats guy. It's ridiculous.
I mean, they had what's his name, Jeffrey Boycott.
Yeah.
As well on that.
That's hard as well, because with something like golf as well, with radio commentary. I mean, what do you actually say? Yeah, you know, I mean, obviously, I don't watch.
But they go over there for the Masters and
That's what I mean. Yeah, they do, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gets like hundreds of thousands of views as well. So
yeah, they must be doing something right.
Yeah, but I don't really get that. I think for radio, I'd definitely say golf, just because to me, at least from outside point, it just looks like nothing happens the whole time. To be honest, but with TV, I would say. I think something like, to be honest, probably similar, because even with golf, like, I mean, it's difficult enough if you can't see it, but if you can see it, then what do
everyone else
can
see
need
it
for? Yeah, you know,
like for you, doesn't it?
Or snooker or something like that, you know.
But a lot of golf is ex-players, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
kind of adding like
I think one that I would throw out there is definitely horse racing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for radio, I don't know how you'd even get about doing
just the speed of it, isn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, I spoke to Richard Hoyles, who's the head ITV commentator for horse racing, and his like routine for before a race is just mind blowing. So he'll have he spoke about this race that he was doing at Royal Ascot, 30 runners, all different colours, and he does the same routine for every race, whether it's Royal Ascot or a rubbish race around Brighton, and he'll look at the race card, spend 5 minutes reading through them, memorising, does the race, forgets about it.
Yeah.
Done.
So he doesn't do any prep until he gets into the...
He does it 5 minutes before, does the race, and then bins it off.
That's exceptional, isn't it?
I mean, say what you will, but that sounds like how we prep for a Dulwich game.
Yeah. And then you could ask him 10 minutes after a race, and he couldn't tell you. He probably couldn't tell you who even won it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've got to respect that, haven't you? Yeah. Right, we'll not annoy Ellie, and we'll move on. So we're going to have a quiz in a few minutes about last week's football. Stay tuned for that. Hello, welcome back to the press box. It's time for the quiz. Now we're going to do Luca against Connor this week, and it's questions. I've not set the quiz, so this it's news to me. But we're going to do questions about this week's football. Where has Connor gone? So Connor is going to. I think he's in the cafe actually. And we're going to see if you compare, see if you can get more than him.
So we're doing the same questions.
Same questions, see how many you get. There is 16, I think.
I mean, as long as I do better than last week.
Yeah, okay, that can't be difficult. Ellie, can you count so I don't have to count, please, in the studio? Thank you. You've got 10 seconds to answer each question. So if you take longer, then I will move you on. Are you ready?
Feels quite intense, just me and you in here, George.
I know. We might turn the lights off. Give us some alone time.
No.
Okay, let's carry on. Are you ready? Your time. You can't see them, can you?
No.
Your time starts now. How many saves did Alisson make last week against PSG?
A lot. 7.
9. Who missed the penalty for Ipswich to knock them out of the FA Cup as they lost to Nottingham Forest?
Oh, it was... Was it Morsey?
It was Jack Taylor. Oh. How many red cards were there in the 5th round of the FA Cup?
None.
4. Which defender made their Manchester United debut against Fulham in the FA Cup?
Aidan Heaven.
Well done, first one correct. Which side became the only side that Erling Haaland has faced and not scored against last weekend? Think about FA Cup.
Plymouth.
Correct. Who is currently the top goal scorer in the FA Cup of teams that are still in the competition?
Still in. Haaland.
It's Jorginho Rutter. Who got a red card for Barcelona against Benfica this week? Say it. Kabasi, yeah. Pau Kabasi, yeah. In the WSL, West Ham drew with Manchester City. Name either of the goal scorers.
Pass.
You could have had Pavy or Shaw. Manuel Neuer got injured in Bayern's win against Leverkusen, but who replaced him when he went off? Yeah. Who wears the number 8 for Inter Milan? This is a throwback.
Kalanoglu?
No, Marko Arnautovic.
Ooh, scored a banger at the week.
How many forwards are Arsenal... Oh, this is tailored to Connor. How many forwards are Arsenal missing through injury for this weekend's game against Manchester United? Forwards.
Does Saka count as a forward?
I assume so, yeah.
So Havertz, Saka, Martinelli. Mine's gone completely blank. We'll go 5.
4. Jesus, I think, is the one you're missing. He's... Wow. Wait, this is proof I've not set the quiz. Forest faced Man City this weekend. What is the aggregate score of the last 3 meetings between the sides?
It's got to be bad for Forest, judging by the way you're talking. I'm going to go 9-0.
7-0.
Oh.
Will, you're fired. Which club did Ipswich sign Alex Palmer from?
Bristol City.
West Brom. Who was Aston Villa player Marco Asensio's first professional club?
Madrid.
Mallorca. Wolves play Everton this weekend, but what is their kick-off time? Or last weekend, as this comes out? It's on Saturday.
12:30.
8. And how many Premier League games were played in London last weekend, as in this weekend?
This weekend?
This coming weekend, yeah.
5.
Correct. Well done. That's time up.
Stinky performance.
How many did he get, Ellie? 4?
Just 4.
You got 4? Oh, that is bad. Right, hold on. We'll get Connor back and we'll come back and see if he can beat Luca's dismal score of 4. Hello, welcome back to the press box. We've had a recount in the studio and Ellie clearly can't count because Luca got 5, not 4. Hopefully that's right. But Connor has returned. And yeah, you've got the dismal score of 5 to beat Connor. You're
How
confident?
many questions?
16.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Probably then. Yeah.
Okay, Ellie, can you count better this time, please? Connor, your time starts now. How many saves did Alisson make against Paris Saint-Germain?
9.
Okay, I think you've lost this, Luca. Who missed the penalty for Ipswich to knock them out of the FA Cup against Forest?
Morsey.
You said the same. Morsey. Jack Taylor. How many red cards were there in the 5th round of the FA Cup?
4.
Wow, yeah. Which defender made their debut against for Manchester United against Fulham in the FA Cup?
Aiden Heaven.
Yeah. Which side became the only side that Erling Haaland has faced and not scored against last week? Yeah. Who is currently the top goal scorer in the FA Cup that is still in the competition?
Still in.
If he gets this, I must have just got
yeah. I think he's got 5 already.
He's got 4, I think.
Oh, it's the Preston guy.
It's not. It's
not.
Ruta.
I don't know. Yeah.
Who got a red card for Barcelona against Benfica this week?
Oh, he's a young centre back. Pau something.
Luca, you got it. Go on, tell him.
Kubasi, mate.
Yeah,
You're not getting that.
Yeah.
In the WSL, I think you'll get this. West Ham drew with Man City. Name either of the goal scorers.
Khadija Shaw.
Yeah, who's the other one?
It was a 91st minute equaliser, and it was a sub.
Manuel.
No, I don't know.
Manuel Neuer got injured in Bayern Munich's win against Leverkusen, but who replaced him when he went off?
Ulreich?
Big, is it?
You're big.
Yeah, big.
Yeah. No.
Who wears number 8 for Inter Milan?
Barella?
Arnautovic. How many
what kind of number is that for a striker?
How many forwards are Arsenal missing through injury for
4.
this week's? Yeah. He's getting sacked for this.
This
Forest faced Manchester City this weekend. What is the aggregate score of the last 3 meetings between the sides?
Oh, it's going to be a lot in it. 14-0?
7-0?
7? Really?
I said 9-0.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
What club did Ipswich sign Alex Palmer from?
Alex Palmer? I have no idea. Pass.
West Brom. Who was Aston Villa's Marco Asensio's first professional club?
First professional club?
I think he might have thrown this away.
Villarreal?
Mallorca. Wolves play Everton this weekend or last weekend, but what was the kickoff time?
Kickoff time at 8 o'clock on Saturday.
It is.
Yeah.
And how many games were played in London in the Premier League last weekend? Or this
weekend?
This weekend.
No, this what's upcoming weekend? 3.
5.
5.
That is game over.
Beat me by 1.
I think was that 6? 7 apparently. Now that is probably wrong if we're going by Ellie's maths, but congratulations.
It's basically a draw.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have done well there, so I'm glad that I was host this week. And that Forest question is
How have you
appalling.
just got the Alisson saves immediately?
Yeah, but I would have got that to be
Yeah,
fair.
no, it's just a stat. Yeah.
We're going to come on to our third segment. We're going to move and talk about F1 with the season just days away. Hello, welcome back to the press box. Ellie has unfortunately emerged from the gallery, which is not something that will happen again, I'm sure, but we've got to have it sometimes. We're going to talk about the F1 season, with it being a few days away. We've got a lot to talk about. Hamilton at Ferrari 6, what they called rookies as well. But we'll start with your predictions. So I've got 4 categories that I've asked you to predict. Connor's came dressed as well for F1, so must have known this was coming. Who do you think will win the Drivers' Championship this year?
No,
predictions.
Verstappen.
Not going to stick your nose out there and be bold and say something else?
I'm going to be bold.
Well, I
Say
can, but I think
Here
it
we
should
go.
be
Lando!
wrong. Yeah, we could just be
Wow.
wrong, yeah.
I mean, that's the people's choice, isn't it? Surely.
I really want it to be Lando. But
Is that, are you going with your head or your heart though there, Ellie?
That's all you need to
Well-
know.
both. But I kind of have a feeling that Oscar will do too good that he'll take points away from Lando.
Oscar Piastri.
Piastri, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
I think
You don't know them.
Piastri. I'm first name basis with them.
You're not. Let's not.
I
let's not
think,
lie.
Never even been to one.
I think
Is she not?
No.
No, it's
Oh,
Formula E, not Formula 1.
Impossible.
I've seen Kimi Antonelli.
So you've not been to a Liverpool men's home game, and you've not been to an F1 race.
They've been in the
I've
Arsenal
been
end,
to
been in the Fulham
Silverstone,
end.
and I've seen an F1 track at Silverstone.
Or I've done a
I've seen
stadium
on
tour.
F1 on track. Anyways, I think Oscar Piastri would take points away from Lando Norris because he's
In the
really
way that Lawson just
competitive.
won't for Red Bull.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so I'm
yeah.
kind of a bit scared saying Lando because I don't know if he can because
Yeah.
Oscar's too
Do you
competitive.
think McLaren, if they're in a position to, do you think they'd be able to prioritise Lando, or do you think they've not got that in them?
They did this season. They
Yeah.
they did that sometimes, and I feel like Oscar was okay with it because he knew it was towards the end of the season, and Lando was the only
There's-
one who could have caught Max.
There's an important point in that though, because Lando had already got himself so far ahead. If they
Yeah.
do that, then maybe they can get away with it this year. But remember, like there's
If
whole
they're
new
closer.
regulations next year.
Yeah.
All of this year, it always happens. This year is about preparing for next year,
Yeah.
right? So if they alienate Piastri in that way, he will just go
Yeah, that's
because he's not.
Yeah.
He's too good. He's not. It's probably not a world championship driver yet. But if that is the fastest car on the grid, he's at least good enough to challenge.
Yeah. So do you think McLaren will be the fastest car? Like constructors, you say both say McLaren.
Yeah,
Yeah,
constructors
yeah, I
McLaren.
think so. Yeah, because they're the only team I think have got two outstanding
Very
drivers.
competitive
Yeah.
drivers.
Not Ferrari.
I think Ferrari will be up there
But it's
more
the
so
car.
than
I
recently.
could do, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm still not convinced about Hamilton, to be honest. I think he'll
Yeah.
do okay. He'll get points and he'll be as good as Sainz was.
Yeah, but nothing.
Yeah,
Not not.
He won't like get anywhere near to winning the
No,
championship.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Okay. So constructors we've covered. Surprise package then. So I asked you to do a surprise package and an underachiever.
Hmm.
I don't know if you want to go for a team or a driver.
Okay.
But if we go
I
for
did
a surprise
drivers
package.
for mine.
Yeah, I did drive as well, but I do
Yeah.
actually have obviously team as well. But I think we probably would say the same.
Yeah, I mean, off testing data would be Williams, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
I think
but
Williams are going to be up there this year. Obviously not fighting for the constructors, but definitely a lot better than they were last
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. Do you think Sainz will contribute to that?
100%.
Yes,
That
massively,
experience
yeah.
is crazy.
he's a race winner as well.
Yeah.
That makes a big
And
difference.
I think him and Albon have a good partnership already. Like they just
Mm.
seem to get on so well.
Yeah, and it's two drivers that have been like they've both had a lot of different teamemates, haven't they?
Mhm.
Like they've been there,
And
done
it's
that.
Val's second year there now. Or
Yeah.
Third.
Yeah.
So obviously he was learning a lot last year, but now he's in his second year.
A
Do you
bit more
think-
clinical, a bit more
Yeah,
ruthless if you need to be. Yeah, like sacrifice one
So
car
how,
for the
how
other.
much
sort
of a
thing.
surprise do you think? What, fifth, sixth?
Yeah, about 50.
Yeah, something like that. I think they could be best of the
Somewhere.
A
rest.
few
Yeah.
top fives maybe.
Could do,
They
yeah.
won't be up there with like Red Bull,
No.
Mercedes.
There's always
Ferrari,
those
but-
crazy races every year where like sort of 4 of the top 6
Crash
don't
out
finish or
and-
something. Yeah, and then
yeah.
you can see a podium or something like that. I think
I'd
you know,
love to
maybe
see
1
an
or 2.
Albon or a
Yeah,
Sainz
yeah, they
podium.
deserve it. I think for
Yeah.
think about like they had barely any money on the verge of collapsing. Now they are with a.
Yeah.
More on Sainz. I
Competitive
mean,
car.
do you think he's been unfairly treated and looked over by the bigger teams in F1?
It's hard to
It's
say.
hard, yeah.
I mean, it was always going to be like with Ferrari. I don't think they did anything wrong. Leclerc
Yeah.
is their he's their
Future,
driver.
Yeah.
And if Hamilton's available, you have to take him, right?
Yeah.
So they haven't done anything wrong there. But I was surprised. Like I think both Red Bull and Mercedes
Could have.
could have. Yeah,
I think
you
it
know,
was
he's-
only
he's
really
quite good.
Mercedes that was the other option because at that point Red Bull had already signed Perez to another contract.
Mm-hmm.
By the
They binned
time
him off though.
by
Yeah.
the time Sainz was available, Red Bull weren't, and when Red Bull were available, Sainz had already signed with Williams.
Yeah.
So Red Bull just should have just sucked it up and been like, well, yeah, we'll sack Perez and get Sainz.
Yeah.
Then it was too late for them. Then they had to get Lawson instead when they much would have preferred Sainz.
So with, as you mentioned, the upcoming change next year, do you think Antonelli at Mercedes, Lawson at Red Bull, do you think they're investments for the future rather than next year? Or
I
this
think
coming
Lawson
year?
is because Red Bull have nothing to lose. I don't.
Yeah.
Cause my surprise package are for Yuki Tsunoda
Okay.
because I still don't understand. Like we've spoken about this a lot. I still don't understand how Lawson's got that seat because he's had maybe what is it like 10 Formula One
This
races.
is where we always fight.
Tsunoda's had years. He beat Lawson over both seasons that they had, like you know, when they were in the same car. He beat Ricciardo when they were in the same car. I don't see like that. I haven't seen enough from Lawson to warrant putting him. Like obviously, if Lawson had come in and been brilliant straight away, he has to go in the car because F1 is not about being fair. There's 20 in the world. You can't be fair. But I don't think there's enough there to say that he should be in the car ahead of Tsunoda.
Yeah.
If Tsunoda responds to that in the right way And if he does, like Perez, when it was going badly for him last year, he was losing to the sister team. I think we could see the same with Lawson, because I don't rate him, to be honest.
I kind of disagree. I think
The arms are folded there. Hello.
I think I do like Yuki. He's a lovely guy and he's a good driver. He definitely deserves to be in F1. But at Red Bull, obviously, I think if Lawson doesn't do well, then Yuki 100% deserves it. But I do think Lawson did deserve the chance over Yuki, just because he'd only had 10 races or 11 races in an F1 car, and he's already like at a similar level to Yuki. Maybe Yuki's a little bit better, but Yuki's been here for years, like 5 years. Lawson's had 10 races. They shouldn't be anywhere near at the same level.
Yeah, I guess, but I think with Tsunoda as well, the other thing is a bit of a nutcase, and I think that's good.
I don't think
you need
Red
that.
Bull want
I think you need that in Formula One, though, because I think the more mellow Verstappen becomes, the more crazy you want your other driver to be. Like, if you look at all the other teams, like Leclerc has got that hot streak in him if you need it. Piastri's done ridiculous things before. Antonelli's a wild card. Red Bull don't have that. You know exactly what you're going to get from Red Bull. You're going to get a pace setter with Verstappen, and then you're going to get Lawson, who's just a bonus, whatever else they can fish out of it.
I just think this season's going to be incredible. Like 6 rookies on the grid. It's ridiculous.
Right, underachiever then. This isn't the one you were arguing about, was it?
No,
No.
it's not. We'll say, I'm pretty sure we'll end up saying different things, but it's not.
I think my achiever is quite surprising. I'm going to say Esteban Ocon, because at Haas, him and Ollie are both new to the team this year at Haas. So I think people obviously...
They're not a stranger to that though, are they?
No, but I think people expecting Ocon to do better because he's got more experience and it's Ollie's first season.
Be the team leader.
But yeah, I don't think he will. I don't think he'll step up and be that team leader. I genuinely think Ollie could do better than him this season. Yeah. So that's my underachiever, Esteban Ocon.
I think it'll be one of the 2 McLarens, because I don't think you can have 2 number ones. Yeah. And that's a problem that they've created for themselves, because I think Piastri is too good to just sit. He's not quite as good as Norris. Yeah. But I think he's too good at the moment just to sit there. If they say right from the off, from race 3, for example, if Norris does well in the first 2, right, that's it, Lando for the championship, then I think that's awful. And then either Norris gets frustrated that his team aren't handing him the points, or Piastri gets frustrated that he has to hand over the point. I think it's too...
So what do you think's the outcome then of it?
I mean, they could win a drivers' championship if one of them is outstanding, but they would have to do the kind of thing Verstappen can, because like what Ellie said, if McLaren are swapping and changing every week,
they give points to Max.
They give point and they take points off each other as well. Yeah. So if Verstappen's coming third consistently to 2 McLarens, when Verstappen does win those races, he's clearing both of them. So he's beating beating 2 rivals. But I think if you've got, in the ideal situation, like Hamilton did it for years with Bottas. Hamilton was always naturally faster than Bottas. There was no debate about that. So they used Bottas as sort of like a backstop, essentially, to slow them down, give Hamilton the free air so he can get through. But Piastri is too good to do that.
I think he was okay with doing that this season, but next season I think he wants to fight
himself. Well, the key thing as well with Piastri, by the time they made those decisions, that papaya rule thing, Lando was already a good way ahead, right? So to go to Piastri and say, okay, look, we're halfway through the season, Lando is 80 points ahead of you, whatever it was. Fair enough. But even doing that, Piastri still got more points than Lando did in the last half of the season. So it makes it, it makes you think. Like, I'm not saying that Piastri is better than Norris. I don't think it. Norris is definitely the slightly better driver, but he can be, exactly.
Lando's my favourite driver, but I still genuinely think Oscar could do better.
Because Piastri's not been in it for very long, and he had to get used to a very quick car very quickly, and he did. He's been fantastic. He won a race before Norris did.
He's been the one that everyone's kept the eye on for years. Everyone's expected him to do well, and he's done well.
And that's the thing. McLaren have got they've done a brilliant job to be able to get control of him, while they've also got another great driver with Norris. But actually, that might not be the best thing to do.
Yeah.
So just before we go then, we're going to talk about Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. I don't think we can't really. Finally, after a year after it was announced it's happened, what are your thoughts on how it might go? Maybe not the fairy tale that we all thought it might be.
It might not be, but again, looking ahead at new regulations, I don't just keep saying the same thing, but if you've got a driver with that much experience who will take you through not only the last year with getting the best out of this car that you know inside out, but also helping you to develop a new car, it's really hard to look at a blueprint given to you by the FIA and say, okay, this is how we're going to make the fastest car under new regulations. But it's the drivers like Hamilton and Alonso who've got all that experience, being able to have Hamilton help you build your 26 car, even if 25 is a write-off, that alone is worth it. And he's still a good driver, like if Ferrari have the fastest car of a weekend, he's going to win some races. It's after testing it, maybe it doesn't look that likely that they will, but he's definitely enough to, he's not just going to be a second driver to Leclerc, which, while like we said with McLaren, that wouldn't work, but if you're not fighting for a championship, it doesn't matter.
Who do you think will finish more points?
Well, the 2 Ferrari drivers.
That's hard.
The thing is, like, when Leclerc's in a situation where he's not going to win, he will take a huge risk that might sacrifice third or fourth to try and win. I think Hamilton has learned not to do that, and he's been a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to call because I think Leclerc will win more races, but Hamilton probably have a higher average position too. It is very hard to say. If I had to push, I'd probably say Leclerc, just because because these is like the 4th year of this generation of car or something like that. So Leclerc has basically been driving this Ferrari for 3-4 years. So I would say if you had to go.
I would say the same.
And if there's a position where they have to, I know it's probably not going to happen, but if there's a position where Ferrari have to prioritise one of them, do you think it will undoubtedly be Leclerc? Or do you think
it's hard to say that to a 7-time champion, isn't it? Yeah.
Like, there's 2 really incredible drivers.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell that early on in the season. They've just got to let them fight, and then maybe later on in the season, if one's further ahead than the other, then start switching. But you can't from the get-go say, right, this is our number 1 driver, because what if that's Leclerc and then Hamilton goes and wins the first 3 races?
I do think with Ferrari as well, there was an element of like sandbagging in testing where they're just not letting on what they can do, because they're always like, they like to have a trick up their sleeves, don't they? There's always got to be something. So maybe there is a kind of, I don't know, maybe there's a resolution to that already between the 2 of them. But they've both been pretty good at handling. Obviously, like Hamilton and Rosberg was a bit of a tetchy one, but that was like, well, it was 10 years ago, wasn't it? Hamilton was a much younger man then, so I think they'd be able to handle it a little better. Just because with Leclerc, he knows that his future with Ferrari is secure. With Hamilton, he knows that he's won 7 world titles. So there's both a little bit of security there that if they don't win a world championship, it's not a disaster.
Yeah.
With Norris and Piastri, they both know that probably the best chance they've got is these next couple of years because of the position they're in on the grid.
About 10 minutes ago, as of recording, it was just announced that Cadillac are going to be on the grid next season as the 11th team.
Yeah.
So we're going to get 2 more drivers on the grid next season. I just want to ask, like, who do you think those 2 drivers should be? Not who they will be, but who would you like to see in F1?
I mean, it will probably change again a lot, the grid next year anyway, so there may be drivers now who aren't. But if we're thinking like literally 2 drivers who are not on the grid now, who should, I think, I don't know, it's not an easy question. I think Zhou was passed over. I think he was really unlucky not to get a seat, and I know a lot of teams are willing to, because as we said, because 25 is basically a setup year for 26, I think that's why we see so many rookies, because they're willing to gamble. But I do think Zhou was really hard done by, to, especially Bortoletto going into literally the same team. They've just swapped a rookie for someone who's had some really good points finishes. And aside from that, I think you kind of need a wild card, don't you? Whether it's someone who, Ollie Behrman has basically got his seat this year off of how well he did as a substitute last year. So I think you need to kind of leave it open for that. So maybe someone like Colapinto, for example, who's done a job like that. But the only driver who I think is not on the grid now who should be is Zhou.
Really, over Colapinto?
Yeah, I think so, because Colapinto did have, he had some great finishes and he had a great bit of flair, but it's almost like, it's kind of like a football analogy, but you imagine like a young player comes up, does really well for 3 games, and then all the other teams work out what they need to do, like they know he's going to be aggressive. So I think a lot of the time, if you keep being that aggressive, sometimes you're going to be rewarded, but he made a lot of mistakes as well. He had quite a lot of DNA, and Williams had that ridiculous streak of crashes, and none of them were mechanical failures, bear in mind. It was all, they're all crashes. So I think he's a good driver, but I think Zhou is a little bit more, he's got more of a level head.
Is there anyone you want to see, Ali?
I think Ricciardo is one that everyone wants back. Everyone loves him. He's not going to be fighting for podiums, but I don't think Cadillac want that. So actually having that experienced driver who could actually just help them progress and grow is probably what they need. Actually, Ricciardo is probably what they need. And I love Vettel, but I don't think he'll come back as a driver. But I would love to see him come back in some kind of like engineering role or something like that. Just having that experience in the team will be incredible.
They've got a whole pit wall to fill, haven't they?
Yeah. And then a rookie of some kind, whether that be Colapinto. I don't know. I don't think it should be Zhou. I'm thinking maybe like Dragovic or Porsche or even Victor Martins, like just one of the like young F2 or ex-F2 boys alongside an experienced driver. So maybe Ricciardo and Colapinto or Ricciardo and Dragovic. That's what I would go with.
Okay, I think they should get Kimi Räikkönen back off retirement. Personally, that'd be my preference. But anyway, thank you for joining us, guys, and thanks Luca as well. We'll be back with another podcast next week. Make sure you hit like on the video, hit subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified when we upload. We'll be back next week, and have a good week. Goodbye.